Okay, let's start. Let's attend to the posture, physical posture as well as the mental posture. And for the physical posture, all of us know how to maintain that. Let the back be upright. Yeah, shoulders level. Remember the hardship the Buddha endured, sitting for long periods, for so many years, without adequate food or drink. We put tremendous effort into that. So we also have to put some effort into this, and it means adopting a posture that is more conducive to the practice, which may be not our usual habit, since we are very often hunched over our devices these days, leading to artificial hunching of the back. And also you might say that this upright posture represents being very straightforward and open. And that is also something that we often find difficult, just to be very straightforward and open with others. Excuse me. Open with others. And this, of course, can be traced back to our kind of self-consciousness that is there, the preoccupation with the self, and the holding on to that, and feeling a little bit awkward about the self, meaning it needs to be protected, it needs to be, helped, it needs to be. It needs to be, we need all sorts of circumstances which we try to attract to ourselves to make ourselves more comfortable, more feeling more protected, feeling stemming from this sense that I need this, I want that. So that often cuts us off from others. We're so preoccupied with our own situation, our own wants and desires, and so forth. So this posture is actually helping us to let go of these old preoccupations and just be straightforward, open, confident. And of course, this is not enough. What we need also is the motivation, the mental factor, because let's face it, even somebody who is practicing, physical development may realize that this is a good way to sit. But behind it is that deep intention, deep aspiration to be of benefit for others. And what we have to, as the vehicle to benefit others right now is this human body. So we have to keep and present this human body in a way that is going to help people long term, help ourselves, help others. So this is a kind of an optimum posture for our mental and physical health, and which can enable us to then be of benefit long term for others. Reflect on some of the previous verses of Shantideva, who asks us to always work for the benefit of beings, do what we can to benefit. We should not harm this body or this opportunity with trivial pursuits, meaningless pursuits. And we should aspire that we may very quickly be able to fulfill the wishes of others, the Dharma wishes of others, fulfill what the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas intend for us. It's as though we have this very precious seed which we have planted, well, which has been there actually since beginningless time, but it needs to be nourished and taken care of very well. So we need to engage in that in the best way possible so that this seed can sprout, bring forth the tree of enlightenment, so that we can help to shelter the suffering beings. Meaning, guide them so that they can help themselves in the best way by following the spiritual path. So there's many ways to do this. So one way we are adopting today is to gain some basic familiarity with this great text of the great noble being, the Bodhisattva Shantideva. So we begin with the stabilizing practice for a little while, so that the mind may become a little bit more focused, peaceful. On that basis, we will continue with our investigation of this text. So being mindful of the posture, bring the attention to the breath, entering and leaving the body through the nostrils. Being mindful so that when the mind gets distracted, we are able to notice that and bring it back in a relaxed way, but a firm way, back to the breath. Maintaining throughout a sense of stillness, a sense of relaxation, and a sense of being very vigilant and awake, very attentive. Okay. So let's continue with our investigation. Are you looking for the text? Yeah.
Which page?
We are on chapter 5, verse 86 or so. We have looked at page 48 in the Bachelor translation. So this body, which is being used for the sacred dharma, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. The other translation I have is the body, apt to practice sacred teaching, should not be harmed in trivial pursuits. Yeah, that's quite good. If this advice is kept, the wishes of all beings will swiftly and completely be attained. So what is a trivial pursuit? Well, if one takes the very traditional approach, then I guess anything that is connected with the 8 worldly dharmas is a trivial pursuit, but which means anything, connected with our obsession with pleasure and not having pain, with gain and not experiencing loss, with reputation, and striving hard not to get a bad reputation, and excuse me, wishing for praise, not wanting any kind of blame. These are things which we, I think if we're honest, we'll find that those things are motivating a lot of what we do, right? Those things are dominating our lives. Whatever we do are somehow in the service of those 8, if we're honest. So we crave pleasure, we crave entertainment. All of these things could be said to be trivial if we compare it with our potential, which is to wake up completely and become, just like Shakyamuni Buddha. No different from Shakyamuni Buddha. That is our potential. So when you look at it like that, it seems like such a waste of time to be engaged in so much shopping or worrying about reputation or when is the next tasty meal coming from, does this person like me or not? If I do this, will I, be able to get more praise and, appreciation of others or not? All of this is motivating what we do, what we say, even what we think. Or obviously what we think, our concepts all built around that. So that's trivial pursuits, and we harm ourselves through that because anything where we are emphasizing aversion or attachment is basically harming us. Anything which we engage in, which is not connected, let's say, with eliminating self-grasping ignorance, is also going to just perpetuate our stay in samsara, right? So, of course, we wouldn't say that the practice of giving, ordinary giving, is a trivial pursuit. But even that, without wisdom, is not going to liberate us from samsara. It's like behaving well in jail. So the jail authorities appreciate you for behaving well, so they give you good treatment in jail, better treatment than the prisoners who are not behaving well. Yeah, but you're still in jail. This is the point. You are still in jail, you just get, better service, and they don't beat you up so often, things like that. But without the wisdom, we cannot be free. And without the great compassion, Bodhichitta, we cannot attain the mind of a Buddha, even though we may attain liberation. So, if we look at things from that perspective, it's kind of embarrassing, because it's like everything we're doing is almost can be put in that category of trivial pursuit. Trivial pursuit, or in the other translation, what does it say? It says slight benefit. Slight benefit, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. Of course, there are many things we engage in which not just, they don't even have any slight benefit. Of course, they have negative impact. So that's something one can remember sometimes. What are we actually doing? Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing to check what one is doing sometimes. Yeah. Verse 87. Those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. You see, great bodhisattvas can give their body away, meaning literally offer their body or the limbs of their body to those who really need it, like the great Bodhisattva prince, who gave away his body for the starving tigress. He could do that. It's not as though at the last moment while he was searching for that something sharp to cut his own throat so that the tigress could eat him, it's not as though at that moment he had second thoughts or began to be afraid and doubt what he was doing. No. If we're at that stage, if we're still at that level of mind, we shouldn't do that sort of thing. Because then it would become a negative action for us. We would have fear and some kind of anxiety and resistance at the time of doing it, and then that would not be any pure action at all. It would lead to possibly not even a good rebirth because of the fear and anxiety involved at that point. But this bodhisattva, that Prince Mahasattva in the story, he gladly, joyfully gave away his body. The text, and I'm quoting, not quoting, but remembering what it says in the Sutra of Golden Light. There it says that he's carefully reflected on why it is so beneficial for him to give up his body. He has convinced himself, and let's face it, he's already a very, very noble being at that point. So he doesn't have the kind of self-grasping, doesn't have that clinging to his own body. As soon as he and his brothers had entered that great forest, according to the sutra, he already, it's very interesting, the different states of mind of the different brothers. I don't have the text right in front of me right now, but one brother is kind of saying that he feels a little bit of unease entering the forest, but Prince Mahasattva feels that, there's, maybe there's going to be the circumstance to be of some great benefit for others, there will be opportunity for some great benefit. So, it depends, doesn't it, on our mind, on our intention. So a bodhisattva like that can give up their body, no problem. I mean, it's not just no problem, it's like joyfully give up, saying, wow, great, how wonderful that I can actually do this, which is going to help me transform my continuum, my mind and my future body into something that is, the body of a Buddha, the holy body of a Buddha. which can engage in so much benefit. I mean, if one reads the teachings on the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas and their capacities, their capabilities, their abilities, it is extraordinary. It's like the most outrageous of science fiction. It feels like, sounds like. But they can emanate so many bodies and so forth to benefit others. And we're not talking about clones. We're talking about all kinds of different kinds of bodies and even objects, which could be beneficial for others who have the karma to receive that kind of benefit. Of course, if beings had the karma to be helped, if all beings had the karma to be helped sufficiently, everyone would be a Buddha by now. But of course, we haven't created the karma to receive help from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Just in case we're wondering, how come they haven't enlightened everyone by now? Since you're saying they have all these amazing powers and ability to manifest, so why haven't they awakened me already? Why am I still asleep? Well, it's like we said before, if the sun is shining and we don't open the door, and if there's a lovely breeze outside, healthy breeze, we don't open our doors and windows, we won't benefit. Yeah. So that's up to us. The Buddhas cannot force us to be open to their beneficial intentions, their beneficial activities. Anyway, those should not give up their body. They should not give up their bodies, whose compassion is not pure and perfect. But let them in this world and those to come subject their bodies to the service of the supreme goal. So even if we don't have that capacity to give away our bodies, like that great Prince Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, who was a great Bodhisattva, then instead of that, in this and future lives, we can still have that aspiration and engage in the path and gradually, work up to that. We can still give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. We can still aim ourselves in that direction of attaining Buddhahood. We should still offer ourselves continually, as Pema Chodron puts it, offer ourselves continually for the supreme goal, the goal of full awakening. Okay. So, the next verse, of course, each verse could be spoken about for quite a while, couldn't it? But here, let's look at the next verse. Do not teach to those without respect, to those who, like the sick, wear cloths around their heads, to those who proudly carry weapons, staffs, or parasols, and those who keep their hats upon their heads. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like the sick, wear cloth around their heads, to those holding umbrellas, sticks, or weapons, to those with covered heads. Yeah, that makes some sense. The person explaining Dharma should always, in a sense, consider the Dharma with the utmost respect, right? So it's like one may consider oneself, and one is, perhaps not a absolutely suitable, say, vehicle for teaching the Dharma. One is not yet, realized or awakened. So one feels sometimes that one is not, qualified to teach the Dharma. That may be so, but the Dharma itself, the medicine of the Dharma, that is something that everybody should have the tremendous respect for, gratitude for, because that is actually the source of freedom. That is what is actually going to cure us of the sickness of the disturbing emotions and so forth. So if we do have that great opportunity and the great privilege of being able to share the Dharma, then we should, out of respect for that Dharma, we should not teach it to people who have no respect. Say people who are not listening to you, who are just, looking at their mobile phones and texting, or in this case, culturally, way back in the 8th century, you shouldn't, the tradition then was you don't wear a cloth around your head when you're listening to Dharma, of course, it would depend from tradition to tradition, wouldn't it? But maybe then it wasn't considered appropriate to have a cloth on your head, not to carry your umbrella, your stick, a weapon. You wouldn't carry your rifle or your bow and arrow into the teachings. That wouldn't be appropriate. Out of respect for the Dharma and the teacher, you don't carry those things there because they can lead. They're also connected with status, right? And so you don't carry those things in there proudly, displaying your status, because when you're listening to teachings, and then we are supposed to consider ourselves like a sick person who is listening to that which is going to heal us. But of course, like a sick person, as it said in the verse, we shouldn't wear a cloth around our head. Shouldn't cover our head. I mean, I have this image flitting in my mind of the men and women at traditional, race courses, like Ascot in England. There's this big trip about Ascot and other, where people dress up, all these kind of fancy dress and all these strange hats and so forth that the ladies are wearing, and the gents, and kind of all very highfalutin and proper and kind of, like a fancy dress party. So that's not the kind of clothes to wear when listening to the Dharma. Of course, the main thing is the mental intention, but these are mentioned so that the Dharma is not devalued. Of course, it's devalued enough nowadays anyway, isn't it? Because it's coming out of every media that we can think of, and it's been listened to almost like a background, like background music possibly. And there's so much of it that, we don't have to walk 1,000 miles to hear Dharma teachings, which is what some people did in Tibet. They walked 1,000 miles, because if you're walking from Amdo or Kham, the places like that in the far east, northeast of Tibet, if you're walking from there to say Lhasa, because you want to hear the great lamas or Dalai Lama Ji teach, then you have to go a long way. And some people walked. A lot of people walked. A lot of people prostrated all the way, to hear the Dharma. And what do we have to do now? We just have to, turn on our instruments, and there it is. It's on YouTube. It's on everything. So it's like, it's easy to devalue it. We could be sitting, slouching on our chairs at home with our feet on the table, listening to the Dharma, in a very disrespectful way. So that's kind of, not kosher, not good. It's like we've been given, it's the chance to, to hear and something extraordinarily beneficial. So we should act accordingly. Slightly, I'm not sure why. I guess Pema Chodron had a reason for giving the commentary in this way. According to Indian custom in Shantideva's time, the various behaviors described here and in the following verses are disrespectful. The Bodhisattva is encouraged to act in accord with the customs of the place and not to do things considered inappropriate. Okay, she's taking the view that there's also aspiring bodhisattvas also going to teachings, not just taking teachings. Yeah. In other words, a bodhisattva blends in and works within the cultural norm rather than standing out like a sore thumb. In the best sense, a bodhisattva becomes invisible. That's a good point. Nobody knows you're a bodhisattva. You're just doing your best to wake up and benefit others. Yeah. Nobody knows you're a bodhisattva, and certainly doesn't go around. You know, like you might be a plumber or a carpenter, so you want people to know, right? Because you want work. So you advertise. I mean, I won't, you know, there's all sorts of messages there used to be in the English phone booths in London, which I won't even mention. People advertising all the things they did and could do. But, you know, the bodhisattva doesn't go around saying, I'm a bodhisattva, you know. And of course, in the teachings, traditionally, people aren't supposed to go out there and say, I can teach you this, I can teach you that. People need to be requested to teach, and then they will teach. They won't just say, oh, I'm going to teach you something. You know, that's considered arrogant. And also, it's like if people are really interested in the Dharma, they should ask for it, right? One shouldn't have to go to them and say, would you like to listen, or I will teach you this. You know, so people traditionally should ask. And then the teacher knows that they are a bit serious. They're asking for it. But of course, the great example of Bodhisattva being invisible is the great Patrul Rinpoche, who lived in the 19th century, whom we've mentioned. A wonderful teacher who the main text he loved to teach was this one, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. He taught that many, many, many times, apparently, in Tibet. So he was someone who just wandered around in ordinary clothes, and people often, you know, the stories of people taking him on as their servants, thinking he is just someone who's looking for work. So they would hire him as a servant, and then when they would see him teaching on a throne, then they would get a big shock and realize that their sweeper, or the person who was taking out their kaka and pipi, was actually this great bodhisattva, great teacher, Patrul Rinpoche. So like that, to be invisible, not to go around in a haughty manner with, you know, lots of, you know, entourage, you know, and you know, on a fancy horse or something. Nothing like that. Nobody knows you're a bodhisattva. You're just doing your best to wake up and benefit others. That's marvelous, really. That's a really wonderful thing.
Milarepa come earlier than this?
Than Shantideva? No, after, 3 centuries after Shantideva. Milarepa is 11th century. Yeah, Shantideva is 8th century. Padmasambhava is 8th century, 7th, 8th century. Yeah. Yeah. Buddhism went to Tibet in 7th, 8th century. Yeah.
Shantideva. Work of Guru Padmasambhava.
Around then. Yeah, we don't know, I think, his exact date of birth, because he was a kind of extraordinary person. But he was at least involved in helping Buddhism go to Tibet in the, I can't remember the dates of that particular king who invited him, but yeah, 7th, 8th century time. Do not teach the vast and deep to those upon the lower paths, nor as a monk to women unescorted. Teach with equal honor, low and high, according to their path. Verse 89. Nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. The vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings, although I should always pay equal respect to the dharmas of the lesser and higher beings. Okay. So, of course, it is considered very wrong to disparage any teaching of the Buddha. So there are the Theravada teachings, there are the Mahayana, there's the Vajrayana. Buddha taught according to the needs and the capacities of his audience. So it's saying if you know somebody is more inclined to basic path, or needs the kind of the A, B, C, D of the path, you don't start teaching them Mahayana or Vajrayana teaching. Just as a as a good teacher in ordinary school would not teach class 10 subject to a kindergarten person or whatever. So we teach according to the capacity, the level of our listener. Of course, that needs skill also to know. It's easy when people are children, but how do you know whether an adult is on the lower, so on a basic path or needs a higher teaching? Well, that requires skill, and maybe one has to check also with people whether they have received teachings before or not. That's also useful to do. If one is clairvoyant, then one knows what the other people need. But if one's not, then one has to be very careful. Of course, as a monk, one's not supposed to teach a woman who is unaccompanied. That's just one of the basic tenets, rules of the basic part of, for the Vinaya, the rules for the monks. It might be, of course, if it is very necessary and of more benefit, one could do so. But again, one has to be careful as a monk. It would also apply to a nun teacher teaching a male. It wouldn't be beneficial. It wouldn't be applauded if she was teaching a male student alone in a room like that. Shouldn't be done. There should be other people there. Teach with equal honor, low and high according to their path. So, whatever is needed by others, one teaches that. Basically, that's what it's saying. And if we disparage any word of the Buddha as being inappropriate, that is very wrong. That is highly undesirable. It's terrible to say, oh, that's a lower teaching, that's a higher teaching. No, they're all teachings which are useful for people at different stages. So one should not disparage any teaching of the Buddha, and one should be happy to teach very basic Buddhism to those who need that. And of course, if one is able, then one can teach higher levels to people who are ready for that. But one has to be careful. One should not dive into teachings on emptiness to people whom you feel will not understand. They will misinterpret. They will get confused. Excuse me?
Abhidhamma carries the mind and relation, mind and body relation.
Nice, Anja.
Abhidhamma Pitak.
What about it?
It is all about mind and relations and psychology, basically.
Yes.
So this is in all traditions.
This is
Vinay Pitak, Suk Pitak, Abhidhamma Pitak. They take all tradition texts.
You're saying it's basic, or what are you saying?
I saw the S.N. Goenka read. He has talked about the Abhidhamma Pitak.
Yeah, of course, Abhidhamma Pitak has a lot of variety of teachings, and it could be taught at different levels. But yeah, in one way, that is a basic teaching, the Abhidhamma. But anyway, for our purposes, we just need to know that if we have studied a lot, then we will know what is appropriate to teach at what level and so forth. So we should be careful, but we should have equal respect for all the teachings, and to whoever comes, with a genuine desire to hear the teachings, we should do what we can for those people. And of course, the good teacher is supposed to be very, very patient and explain again and again, if necessary, to people who need something to be explained again and again. So one is supposed to have, as a valid, good teacher, one is supposed to have tremendous patience and loving kindness, for all of the students. There are many stories connected with that, of course. For example, the story, true story, I'm sure, of the attendant of one teacher who was very upset because the students were not appreciating and thanking his teacher enough. So he got upset because, he was a disciple of that teacher, was the attendant. He got upset and he spoke to the teacher and he said, I'm upset because these people are not respecting you enough. They're not thanking you, and this teacher said, when I look at these students, he said, all I see what I see is beings who are suffering. These are beings who are suffering. They need help. So I have absolutely no need of appreciation or thanks or anything like that. I'm just helping them because they they need the medicine of the dharma. So for me, thanks is irrelevant. Of course, from their side, it's good to thank and be grateful, obviously. But from the teacher's side, he just compassionately sees suffering beings who need help. That's why that person is sharing the dharma. So that's something one should keep in mind. If one has the privilege of sharing the dharma with people, one should not expect any thanks, really, like that. Of course, everything now has become commercialized, so everything seems to have a price, and not only so money, but people also, of course, are looking for thanks and to be praised and to be, you give a class to a few people and then, you want it all to be photographed and shared everywhere, things like that. Of course, that can be very beneficial, but it depends on the motivation, I guess. Okay, those suited to the teachings vast and deep should not be introduced to lesser paths, but basic practice you should not forsake, confused by talk of sutras and mantras. So anyway, Pema Chodron is saying in regard to these last two verses, these days a monk probably wouldn't have a problem teaching to women unescorted, but in Shantideva's time in India, it was considered shocking. So when in India, do as the Indians do. This is another Bodhisattva guideline. The important thing is to teach in such a way that your audience understands what you're saying. Don't teach too intellectually to those who just want to learn how to get through the day. But for those capable of hearing the profound truth of emptiness, don't hold back. Don't bore people with the teachings. At the same time, never forsake basic teachings, such as causing no harm and benefiting others. One might prefer instead to impress people with your knowledge of sutras and mantras before they're ready. So that's very good. Yeah, we shouldn't be showing off. And it's very easy to do, I can tell you, having had a lot of experience sharing the dharma. It's very easy to start showing off. Because one feels, at least I'm not showing off in some worldly way. I'm showing off the dharma, but it becomes a worldly action if one is doing it to show off. There's that story of Trungpa Rinpoche in regard to this verse, basic practice you should not forsake. Trungpa Rinpoche, this great teacher who taught in the States till his early death in 1987, they were holding a seminar, okay, in which the subject matter was Mahayana teachings. And a lot of the students at that time, early days of the Dharma, you could say, they were sleeping in a tent. There are many students sleeping in a tent. This is in the United States. And in the middle of the night, I don't know what time, but in the middle of the night, everyone's asleep. Trungpa Rinpoche barges in, wakes them all up, okay, all these students, he wakes them all up and talks to them about the importance of the basic teachings and never to forget or to disparage the Hinayana teachings or the basic teachings. It's like you can get high on the what we consider the higher teachings, compassion, bodhisattva, and of course then later Vajrayana, Tantra, and then we can put down people who are emphasizing basic morality, basic calming and stabilizing the mind, and the basic teachings on wisdom. We might begin to think that is kindergarten stuff. I've done all that. I'm now Mahayanist, or maybe I'm even a tantric person. So Trungpa felt it necessary to barge into the tent and remind people that, look, the basic teachings are very, very essential. Do not forget them. And I don't suppose you would forget it. If someone barged into your tent and you were enjoying sleep and they woke you up, then you're going to remember that your whole life, you know. Yeah. So we shouldn't forget the basics. So if we don't know how to control our body and mind for 2 minutes in the basic stabilizing meditation, then we know it's not bad, but then we know what our level is. We know that we need to do more of that practice. Not that we cannot hear the other teachings, but we know that we need the basic, what we call the, 3 higher trainings. It's called the Shil, Samadhi, Pragya, morality, concentration, wisdom. That's the basic. That's very basic and very essential. It's the foundation. How can we have a good house without a foundation? It's ridiculous to think so, but that's what we do. And Shantideva here is giving a lot of good practical advice as well. So how to behave, because one has this responsibility of sharing the dharma. When I spit or throw away the stick for cleaning my teeth, I should cover it up with earth. Also, it's shameful to urinate and so forth in water or on land used by others. In response to this verse, Dzongsa Chensei said, in India to this very day, they still don't listen to Shantideva. So here and in the following 5 verses, Shantideva gives advice for benefiting others by paying attention to all the details of your life. See, here we have the dantun, which is very healthy, organic way of cleaning your teeth. You have the piece of stick from a neem tree or other trees, and it's very good if one gets used to it. It's, for brushing, chewing it and then brushing your teeth with that. Very organic, very good. But how do we get rid of it? Usually in India, we just throw things in anywhere. Unfortunately, India is covered with plastic, this and that, and the rickshawala, the 3-wheeler person I used yesterday, I think it was, to go somewhere. He was spitting every 2 minutes. I got quite annoyed because he'd been eating pan, of course, and then he was spitting every 2 minutes on the road. Wasn't spitting, none of it came on my kurta or anything, but it's just so annoying somehow when people just think they can spit or throw things anywhere. And in India, of course, a lot of my images of India, especially even rural India or, small town India, parts of Delhi too, is there are certain places, certain walls and areas where people stop and urinate against the wall. Men, of course, women are not doing this. Poor women have to find a place, or even in the countryside, get up early and go out to the fields before the men. But, we urinate anywhere. And of course, small kids are often seen just going out and having a number 2 anywhere. And that's, if we are aspiring bodhisattva, we shouldn't do that. When eating, I should not fill my mouth, eat noisily or with my mouth wide open. Yeah, I find that very annoying. With others, I try not to do it myself. I should not sit with my legs outstretched nor rub my hands together. People not only rub their hands together, they rub their legs together. Have you seen that? Or, just, their legs are moving as they sit. It's kind of weird. We shouldn't do that. It's distracting and not appropriate for a bodhisattva. I should not sit alone in vehicles, upon beds, nor in the same room with the women of others. So it's okay to sit in a room with your own sister or mother, of course, or grandmother, but not with other women alone. In brief, having observed or inquired about what is proper, I should not do anything that would be disliked by the people of the world. This is interesting, because in one way, the dharma is going against the flow of the world, in the sense of being against the 8 worldly feelings. But in order to communicate that dharma, we cannot be outrageous, and we cannot behave in a way that is instantly going to be disliked by others. It's one thing to say, I don't want to marry, I don't want to have a house, I don't want to, spend a lot of time getting rich, and because of that your parents are unhappy, so therefore you should listen to your parents. Of course, that is not what the Dharma is saying. But in these things like habits which are just going to upset people, so that they're not going to listen to you if you're trying to teach them the Dharma, those things should be given up. We should inquire what are the norms in this country. If you are supposed to go and teach somewhere where they rub their nose with yours as a gesture of greeting, then you should be ready for that. But then you don't do that somewhere where that is inappropriate. If Americans or people like to shake your hand, then you shake their hand. You don't keep on saying namaste to people who don't appreciate namaste. Of course, everything has to change. When there was when COVID was at its height, no one was touching each other, were they? Like that in public, or probably. I should not give this next verse. I really like this next verse. I should not give directions with one finger, but instead indicate the way respectfully with my right arm, with all my fingers fully outstretched. Isn't that nice? Of course, left arm in India is used to wipe your bottom after going to the toilet. So that's why the right arm should be there. And all the fingers, not pointing. Somehow pointing like that is like pointing out a mistake, right? Often when we just point with one finger. So respectfully, we use the whole hand. Tibetans and also Indian people now, very often very respectful, especially monks, or if you're going to visit a monastery or to visit a lama, his attendants will not point you towards the lama with one finger. They will respectfully have the whole hand, and we also, I think, do that naturally. If a guest comes to your house and you want them to sit down, you'll use your whole hand. You won't point with one finger, because sit there. Use your whole hand, and that's nicer, right? Nor should I wildly wave my arms about, but should make my point with slight gestures and a snap of my fingers. Otherwise, I shall lose control. Even snap of the fingers, I think that's also culturally something. In England, if you snap your fingers, it's not considered so polite, unless it's someone younger or a student whose attention you're trying to catch. Otherwise, to snap your fingers as a means of calling someone, is that respectful in India? What do you think?
No.
Not really, no? Yeah. So we have to be careful with that one too. The point being, otherwise I shall lose control. The point is not to lose control. Even when going to sleep, verse 96, just as the Buddha lay down to pass away, so should I lie in the desired direction when going to sleep. And first of all, with alertness, make the firm decision to quickly rise again. So no going to bed thinking, wonderful, I'm going to sleep 10 hours tonight, or even 8 hours. No way. It's much too long, unless one is exhausted or sick. Yes. So don't eat, gobbling and making a noise, or stuff and cram your gaping mouth. Yeah. Don't wave your arms with uncouth gestures. I'm just reading the other translation. Express yourself with modesty, for acting otherwise is impolite excess. The important point is not to mindlessly collapse into bed and just as mindlessly arise. There are many things which are recommended for thinking about when one goes to sleep, before one goes to sleep. I'm not talking of the exotic sleep yogas or anything like that, but just, reviewing the day, maybe remembering something beneficial, your guru or compassion, or maybe some rejoicing at something beneficial you did, or remembering something uncouth or unwise one did or said in the day, and maybe thinking, well, that wasn't so great. Maybe tomorrow I'll be more careful. Or thinking that, I'm going to rest now because I need rest, and I'm not doing it just for, for pleasure, but because, my life is dedicated to helping others, and I can't help others if I'm tired out or if I've not rested my body and mind. So those kind of things, or simply mindfully watching the breath, also good. If one has a teacher, one can imagine one's teacher, there on the pillow or one's lap. It was teacher's lap, teacher visualized as as the Buddha, maybe something like that. We can go to sleep in a mindful way, and so forth. And even modern, research shows that to have been watching too many things on a screen, whether smartphone or laptop, is not good for health or for the eyes or for sleep. It disturbs the nervous system to watch too much television or screens before bedtime. And of course, Ayurveda says there should be a good time lapse between eating and sleeping, of course, which most people don't follow now. People eat very late and then go to bed soon afterwards. But Ayurveda says 3 hours. So the stomach can digest everything while you're awake and not have to digest when the body has slowed down its metabolism in sleep. If food does not get properly digested. So all this wonderful advice I have, which I don't even follow myself properly. Anyway, there we are, folks. Let's have some discussion. It's 7:43. Haji?
Can I get you some tea or water?
Oh, how kind of you. It's Bodhisattva activity. You can throw this water in that bucket there, and just some hot water, and just, any... there's a very fancy herbal tea called rooibos. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So, okay, you can unmute yourselves. At no point had I unmuted, stopped that. So any comments, folks, on this? Sorry, I just have to send an important message. This is work related, sorry. Work meaning Dharma work related. Anyway, we can take a short break. People here are at the bar mixing their gin and tonics and making me a herbal drink. So I'm joking, of course. Yes. Okay, folks. Would you like to share anything? Feel free. Welcome to the latecomers who came. Vishad, Nitya, Ashwin. Are you there? It's like talking to a stone wall. Bricks in a wall. Thank you very much.
I'll get you a spoon.
Thank you. Haji, nobody. Ashwin, good. Vishad, hi. Purple, good, nice purple. Yeah. I hope you're well. In fact, Aruna ji, what are you doing playing with your smartphone? Kaise hain? Nitya, Namita, Shushmita? Anybody? Otherwise, I'll just. Rooibos is a particular herbal tea which is from South Africa, apparently. I really like it. It's one of the herbal teas that doesn't just taste like dishwater. But yeah, you can see I'm compromised, conditioned. Yeah, cheers. Yes, anybody? No? Good. Everything clear? Vishad?
Kabirji, can you hear me? It's Ashwin.
Who's you? Ashwin, boliye.
So I was just wondering that like the Dharma, many of the scriptures, so to say, of Buddhism have been written a long time ago.
Yes.
And I know since I'm from a Christian family, I know that sometimes the teachings in Christianity, they maybe not so applicable to modern times. And sometimes the Pope speaks out and he says that maybe there's a particular teaching we should not be following. For example, in Christianity, it says that homosexuality is a sin, but the Pope has changed his view on that. I'm just wondering, in Buddhism, is there any particular authority who can speak up about maybe things in the scriptures which need to be changed for modern times?
Yes, His Holiness has several times said that some things that are in the Abhidhamma or things that have been written by people like Vasubandhu on the nature of the cosmos, of the solar system, he says, His Holiness says it's laughable because it's just incorrect, because they didn't know the distances and the sizes of various things at that time. So I think what His Holiness was trying to say, because he's quite outspoken about it, he says, modern science can help us with a lot of things, like distances between planets and this and that and so forth. And, probably quite a few Tibetans or people from the Buddha's time thought the earth was flat. They didn't know exactly many things, Maybe the Buddha knew, but he didn't speak so much about, I think, the shape of the earth or things like that. So they could have got a lot of things wrong in many of the texts, which so Dalai Lama says on certain things we should rely more on modern science. But in things like homosexuality and so forth, there's nuances. There are definitely people who take strong views and may consider themselves authorities on various things. That's for sure. Like if you get some high-level monk from the Theravada tradition, many of them, I think, speak quite authoritatively and feel that they are authorities. And if other people think they are an authority, then then you become an authority, right? So certain things can be looked at in different ways. Now there's much more openness and flexibility in in Buddhist attitudes towards homosexuality, towards the whole spectrum of issues around that and transgender and so forth. The main point made by Buddha, and which I think we need to always keep in mind, is how much any particular activity is harmful to the persons engaging in it, or even one of the persons. Any action, is it harmful? Is it harmful to the mind, harmful to the body? Is it going to lead to is it going to be beneficial for the for the training and taming of the mind or not? That is really the yardstick. So for example, when I was first listening to the Dharma, and teachers would say the topic of sexual misconduct, right? They would just say adultery, adultery is sexual misconduct, because of course they wouldn't want to go into too much detail, but there is a lot of detail in some of the Buddhist teachings on what is sexual misconduct. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about all of that now, but but why would they mention adultery as being sexual misconduct? Because obviously it has the potential to create harm, right? You can make people jealous, unhappy, angry, murderous, whatever. Also give you a guilty conscience later, whatever. So that's why it's harmful, because it disturbs the minds of sentient beings. And our whole point of our practice is not to disturb the minds of sentient beings, but to, benefit them as much as possible, make people as happy as possible, and so forth. So, yeah, but I think if you take a Taoist, if you read some of the Taoist teachings, and then they have some, and I'm not going to talk about it here, but if you're interested in that topic, look at what the Taoists say about homosexuality, lesbianism, and it's, I think, very wise what they say, because they're looking at it also from I think, a very common sense and sort of health point of view also. I don't want to say more about these topics now, but for sure, your main point that some things that were relevant, 2,600 years ago, they're not so relevant now. But the basic teachings, I think, if we check, and even the basic vows of the monks and nuns, they're all, I can't think of any that are totally irrelevant now. I mean, some of them are very minor rules about how you should fold your robes and this and that, but most of them are still appropriate. I can't think of any that are totally inappropriate now or not suited. Because we may be much more tolerant nowadays of a monk being alone in a room with a woman, but the point is still very valid. It's still, the reason why the Buddha taught it is still valid now, And why did that rule emerge? You see, most of these rules emerged because something happened which caused a problem, and it was reported to the Buddha, and then he made that rule. And then it became a rule, such as kind of quite humorous ones that I sometimes mention.
Great logicians, even Dhammakriti.
Because there was even this monk who, maybe quite a big monk, went to somebody's house, sat down inappropriately and broke a chair in that person's house. And then that person complained to the Buddha. So then there was the rule that if a monk goes to someone's house, a layperson's house, first of all, don't sit down until you're asked to. And when you are asked to sit down, you jolly well sit down appropriately, calmly. And if you're a big person, make sure that chair can bear your weight, or just sit on the floor. Of course, the lay person may not want the monk to sit on the floor, but anyway, one has to. What I'm saying is, rules came up because problems arose, and people thought, yeah, we have to report this to the Buddha, and then the Buddha made rules. आप क्या कह रहे थे?
Dhammakriti also made some rules. He's a logician, a great logician.
Rules about what?
About daily lives, what could be wrong, what is right, according to the time.
Probably. Yeah, I'm not sure. Could be.
But, do the ordained members' vows also include things like not dancing, not listening to music, or not creating music? Are all of those things also part of vows?
Strictly speaking, in the basic Vinaya. But of course, if you're a monk in the Mahayana tradition and you have a genuine positive intention, then of course you can play music if it's beneficial, especially if you're playing music which you think can help others be more relaxed or more happy, then that is permissible. But again, one has to be careful that, because where do you stop? Listening to music can then go on into, whatever, all night, or into other activities that people associate with music, like drinking, smoking, and so forth. So then one has to be very skillful. But I know Lama Yeshe once encouraged people to have a really nice party because he knew his students needed to relax and needed a party. So they had a party, and Lama Yeshe attended the party, of course. Of course, there's no alcohol, but because he was a monk. But I've been to places where, to a teaching where a very highly regarded Nyingma Lama opened a bottle of wine immediately after he finished teaching and shared it with his mainly Italian students. And we Gelugpa students were flabbergasted because we'd never seen a geshe open a bottle of wine after teaching, right? But again, there was no harm. There was, that's what Italians do. And this teacher wasn't a monk. So why not share wine, which in any case in Italy is a bit like just water, it's nice flavored water. It's not got those kind of prejudices we have in Indian society about, daru, drinking, which is considered very unspiritual. But again, what's unspiritual, according to some, is a heavy-handed morality which has no kind of flexibility. That's not useful. But that can also be discussed. But yeah, it's very annoying sometimes to meet people who are sticklers for every single rule. And if you have ever smoked or drank in your life, or if you still eat eggs, they regard you as some kind of impure person who is not fit to, talk about Dharma. Because these things, then they are looking very much at externals, aren't they? They're not looking at the intention or the mind aspect. They're very much caught up in almost, you could say, ritualistic outer activities, which are supposed to designate a spiritual person. If you don't wash, if you don't have a bath in the morning in India, many people just treat you would think you're a kind of an outcast. You're a total, you've lost it. I often don't have a bath, for your information, especially in cold weather. So, you can stop coming to my Zoom sessions in winter. I don't care. Well, I do care. But you see, the main point is for the mind to be in a relatively good place. Body, of course, I don't come to Tushita stinking. I try to avoid that. But we have all these rules and things. We must do this, must do that. So, sorry, Ashwin, long answer. But yeah, there's nuances. And the main thing is we should not be harming each other. And that's not easy sometimes. And of course, we can harm each other with being excessively moralistic. That is true. Or thinking we know better. Or thinking due to whatever, that this is wrong, that is wrong. Something may seem very strange to us, but it doesn't mean it is totally wrong in any way. Anyway, what do you think? What's your opinion or thought? Opinions are dangerous things. They tend to solidify and start knocking against other people's opinions, It's like a rather heavy football. Not an ordinary football, but something with lead in it. So, it hurts people. So I think in one way we have to learn to be a little bit flexible with our sacrosanct opinions, especially if we read things in books and we think, oh, that must be the truth. Well, we have to, Buddha asked us to check carefully, didn't he? So by checking, Dalai Lamaji thinks that what Vasubandhu writes about the universe, a lot of it is totally incorrect. And it's probably right. If we slavishly go on, thinking Vasubandhu, how could he say anything wrong? That's not being intelligent. Vasubandhu lived at a time way before telescopes and so forth. Well before Kepler and Tycho Brahe and Galileo and all those people. So how would he know what is where and what the distance is and what the size is and, you know, what the universe is like? How would he know?
Prabhuji, why would he mention all of these things if he didn't know all these things?
But that was the received knowledge at that time. He maybe felt it was correct. Of course, there's also the possibility he was just speaking of it in symbolic terms, and that many people did understand it in a symbolic way, like Mount Meru, the 4 continents, sun and the moon, that's in the mandala offering. You know, that's one way of looking at the universe. Maybe it's a symbolic way of looking at the universe. But still, Dalai Lama Ji said that we shouldn't take it literally as the truth, because it is actually wrong compared to modern science. But that, of course, begs the question that are there more than one way of looking at things, at the universe? And obviously there is, you know. If I look at this screen in front of me right now, this is hard. But if it's suddenly presented to me like this angle where I'm looking at it, then it might take me a while to figure out what it is in front of me, you know. We can change perspective very quickly. You had that experience with a person? You love them with all your heart one day, you never want to be separated from them, they're your soulmate. Then the next day, just because they said or did something or looked at you a certain way, they are, you know, you don't want to be near them, you know, they're your worst. That experience? I hope you don't have it too many times, but you only need to have it once for you to understand that, you know, it's about perspective. Things are about perspective. There's no infallible, inherent this or that, is there? That's the basic teaching on emptiness. One of the basic points, isn't it? There's nothing inherently existing in a solid manner, unaffected by its relations with other things and observers. Everything is relational. Everything is interdependent. Pratitya samutpad, dependent, co-arising. Things depend on other things. The letter A, as we've said before, depends on parts, it depends on causes and conditions, and it depends on the observing consciousness. Only when all those 3 things are there do we have something which we call the letter A. There's no letter A from its own side, independent of those 3 factors. Is there? Was there a letter A 1,000,000 years ago, you know? Or let's go back to the dinosaurs 70, 80 million years ago. Did they go around understanding the letter A, which may have been in the sand by mistake, that those 3 lines in the sand, and there's, you know, mother dinosaur saying to her child, oh, there's the letter A, you know? No way. Letter A depends on many things, not just some lines in the sand. So anyway, yeah. Good question, Ashwin. Yeah, that's a very important question. What else, folks? I'm okay. I'm only going to have soup for dinner, and I'm an independent person at the moment. Aunt is in Himachal, so there are no calls for supper. I don't have to rush upstairs for supper. I might go to the market and see the poor shopkeepers trying to sell their Diwali wares. So many shops just sprung up, you know, on the streets selling Diwali items. There's no way they can sell, even most of them, I think. I think about how much effort people have gone into that and how much they're hoping to make a profit, but many of them will not succeed, you know. It's quite sad seeing all those wares. But it's kind of glitzy. There's light and there's kind of a buzz in the market. Might go and buy some bread to have with my soup. Lazy to make rice at this hour. Haji, any more? Pradeep, Pradeepji, thank you. Have to go. Yep. Thank you. Anyone? No? Good. It's very good. The verses today were very clear, very precise, very practical. They don't need much commentary. The point is, if we're going to benefit others, we'd better know how to do it. We better be appropriate. We don't need to be outrageous, and we shouldn't advertise ourselves as somebody special, or even hint to others that we may have some qualities, you know. And of course, if we were genuinely a bodhisattva, we would have no need to do that, because a genuine bodhisattva is someone who's gone a long way towards eradicating this kind of self-consciousness and need to promote oneself, because that being is whole life is dedicated to others, you know, promoting others, you could say, benefiting others. So in a sense, they are invisible. The ones who aren't invisible, they are not invisible for definite reasons, like Dalai Lama Ji is not obviously invisible, but of course you'll never hear him saying that he's a bodhisattva, let alone a Buddha. All he will say is that, you know, I have so much deep respect now for emptiness and Bodhichitta, having studied it for 60, 70 years. So that's how he expresses it, you know. But, you know, many people feel he's definitely a bodhisattva or more, you know, Buddha. He doesn't advertise it.
Kabirji, there was a hand raised by Sushmita ji.
A hand? What's that?
Raised Sushmita ji. Maybe they want to.
I didn't see the hand. Oh, there's no. Shushmita ji, did you want to say something? No hand, no voice. No. Did you see a hand? It's like that.
I saw like the hand.
It's like the goal that Maradona scored, yeah, the hand of God.
He's saying her microphone is not working.
Oh, then you can't, then you have to type your question. We can be patient. Type your comment or question. No hurry. Meanwhile, we can watch our breath or eat chocolate or whatever we have at hand. But eat it quietly, not noisily. No chocolate here today. It's upstairs in the fridge. Oh, probably finished. You're not typing, or are you typing? Has she disappeared? Is she still there?
The question is,
oh, yeah, now you're unmuted. That's good.
Question is in the chat, Kabirji.
Okay.
It's in the chat?
Would
Would you have any advice on how to cultivate consistency in our practice? Oh my goodness. Well, the real way to do that, well, one way is to think, is Dharma practice as important as going to the toilet or brushing my teeth? You might say no, because if I don't go to the toilet, then I'll get very sick very quickly. Okay, is it as important as brushing your teeth or combing your hair? You know, if you have long hair, is it important to comb your hair every day? Probably, yes. Is it important to eat something every day? Yes. So in the same way, might it be important to engage in something that actually helps us to generate calm, peace, happiness, love and compassion, and then, you know, wisdom. It could help us really benefit ourselves long term and others. And then I'm going to die, and you're going to die, and we have no idea when we're going to die. So that might help us remember at least that maybe it's a good idea to do some practice today. Otherwise, there's no way you can beat yourself up into doing it. One has to motivate oneself. So how do you motivate yourself? Usually we motivate ourselves by seeing the benefits of something, don't we? Like a businessman, why should I do this? Because, okay, this is a way to make more money, so I'm going to do this, you know. And why should I make more money? Well, because I want to have a bigger house and I want a car and da 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 da. So then the businessman has a motivation to make more money and to, you know, open their shop on time or do whatever they do. So here it is said actually that the only sure way to make sure we have consistency is to engage again and again in the practice of the 4 initial reflections or meditations, which are the reflection on the precious human life. Okay, let's have some revision here. What's the next one? Sagar, first is precious human life. What's the second thing we reflect on? The basic meditation. Rishabh?
Death and impermanence, Kabirji.
Thank you. Death and impermanence. Third one. Third meditation, reflection, which helps turn our mind towards the Dharma. So we've had precious human life, we've had death and impermanence. What's the third one? Oh dear. Ajirji can tell us, if Ajirji is still there. Anushri? No? Okay. Sagar? Good grief. I'm giving you all extra work to do. Then put you in detention. Third one is actions and consequences. Karma. What's the fourth one? It should be obvious.
Emptiness.
Atterika. वो बहुत बाद में आता है.
Loving kindness. Bodhichitta.
Now you're just, what's it called? You're just wildly guessing. These are 4 initial meditations that turn our mind towards the Dharma. Precious human life, death and impermanence, actions and consequences. And what is one of the main meditations which helps us develop renunciation or revulsion towards samsara? Obviously. Why do we feel revulsion at the smell of the toilet when it's not cleaned? It's a similar thing. Why are we disgusted by samsara? Why might we feel disgusted by samsara? There's nothing to do with the garbage on the streets in Delhi or Noida or Gurgaon. What's the main reason to be disgusted with samsara?
Suffering.
Right. The 4th meditation is suffering of samsara. So if we engage in those 4, Shushmitaji, it will help us to gain, of course, even to engage in those 4, we need consistency, right? But we need to remember, maybe briefly in the mornings, next to your ketli or wherever you make your first cup of tea or coffee or whatever you do, you might have a little note saying, remember, these 4 meditation, or remember to brush your teeth, and then remember to sit for 5 minutes. And even if one sits for 5 minutes every day, it will build up a consistency, right? Which will be much more effective than sitting for 10 hours once every month. It'll be better than spending a whole Saturday once a month or once a year, doing something and making, probably, getting exhausted. So better to do 5 minutes a day. So that will be one way you can do it. I can't think of any other way right now. If one really meditates on the death and impermanence, well, it is said that for some people, they can feel a tremendous fear and not even be able to sleep. So that would be good for a short while, and that motivates such people to then really turn their mind towards Dharma practice. But that may sound a bit fundamentalist, but that's one way. Well, and if you really develop compassion a lot, or really feel for suffering and say, wow, I'm really sick and tired of this suffering, my own and others, then you will practice. And what if you are convinced that the Dharma is the way? You might think that drugs or something else is the way, but that would be misguided. That one can see if one see this is why it requires some study. Why is Dharma supposed to be the best remedy? Why does Shantideva, in his dedication chapter, verse 57, the penultimate verse of that text, why does he say, may the teachings which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy? Why does he say that? We have to begin to understand why the Dharma is the antidote to suffering. We don't understand that. It's like going to the doctor thinking that we have no faith in the fact that his medicine is going to eradicate our physical sickness. So why is the Dharma able to eradicate our suffering? We have to begin to understand that, at least intellectually. If we don't understand that, then I don't think we would have much inclination to practice something which we're not sure about what it is or how it works. Why should I do it? It's just like time pass. Well, you may do it because you want to feel peaceful, okay? But then there are times when you want to be peaceful because we're upset or whatever we are. But then when you feel good about your life, you'll stop practicing because you don't feel that need to be peaceful. But just because you feel okay temporarily with your life doesn't mean samsara has stopped being suffering, Suddenly samsara has changed and it's now okay. So one has to understand what samsara is, the fact that there is no corner in samsara whatsoever where there is pure happiness. We have to understand what that means, what pure happiness is. And we have to understand the definition of samsara, which we were talking a lot about last week, which is the continuity of the contaminated body and mind, which has its origin in karma and delusion and karma. If we are still motivated by delusion and karma, controlled by them, which we are, then there is no place in this planet or anywhere where we're going to find pure happiness, or with any person, including someone you might feel is your long lost soulmate. Even they can't make you happy. They cannot give you true happiness. They can give temporary happiness and deep satisfaction even, but nothing lasting. How can they? So these are things we have to reflect on. Does that help, Shushmita? Sorry, long answer to your good question.
Oh, yes,
no?
Thank you. I'll try.
Thank you.
I'll try.
Yeah, yeah, and of course we have to go beyond laziness. We have to realize the shortcomings of laziness. If it, laziness is will mean that we are not successful in any of our pursuits. If we're really lazy, we won't even succeed in any temporary pursuits. We'll just kind of, I don't know what the word is, stumble along in life and not gain any kind of real satisfaction. And won't be able to fulfill even our temporal desires or wishes, and certainly won't be able to help others. So all these things may help with the continuity. And once one gets into the habit, it just keeps on happening. That's the good thing about habit. There's nothing that we cannot habituate our mind towards. Up to now, we've habituated it to trivial things and to unwholesome activities. That's why we're still circling and so unhappy and miserable and foolish and all the rest of it. But we can begin to acclimatize our mind to what is more beneficial. Just like any kind of health routine you begin to engage in, which makes you feel better physically, that we can get used to it and then we keep on doing it. And we find it beneficial. There's a lady in her 40s who I see every day outside, the house, going up and down and walking and doing some running. She's a lecturer at university. I think that does her a lot of good. Every morning around 6 or slightly before, she's out there doing her physical, fast walking, running, whatever. And obviously it's something that benefits her. So we should have some good routine physically as well as mentally. Otherwise we're going to get old quicker and have more sickness, more depression, more all of the mental and physical diseases that come from being immobile and lazy. So that's my sincere advice, which I try to follow myself a little bit. Okay, we'll stop. Well, we can go on a little bit. There's a very lazy fly. You know, sometimes you find a fly that is, I don't know if it's like they're just lazy or they had some wine or they're coming to the end of their life, but they're very slow and they just kind of crawl around where you are and they don't do much. And it's been here since the beginning of the session, just kind of crawling around, poor thing. And, but hopefully just listening to the vibration of Shantideva might have been beneficial for this poor fellow. Yeah. Drunken fly. What else? Vishad, yeah. Precious human life, death and impermanence, karma, suffering. Thank you, Vishad. And thank you, Ashwin, who maybe guessed it before everyone else. At 8:15. Thank you. Nitya, nothing today? Okay.
No, Kabirji, nothing really to say, just listening.
I think the subject matter today was too simple. So there was nothing.
No, not at all. In fact, I think it struck me as equally as all of your sessions do. I think I was just thinking about the nuances of how important it is to go about life with a more nuanced outlook and framework. And sometimes there's no end to, how much you can dissect your own thoughts and actions and how important it is to do that, but not by making life complicated, but, sort of doing it in a more easeful manner. Something that comes more naturally. And I think the study of the Dharma, as you said, will be helpful with that process of going about life in a more nuanced way. Yeah.
And also helps you stay mindful with all of these, you just need to be mindful of what you're doing, the action that you're doing might harm others, might harm yourself.
Yes, and like nuance, meaning that, when you're in different groups of people, how different groups of people have slightly different ways of behaving and expectations. So one is aware, that when you are with, if you go to a party of diplomats, you behave differently naturally than if you're just, relaxing with people who've been working, I don't know, at your home or in your garden or something like that, or your best friends. So there's a nuance there, isn't there? But the other thing I wanted to mention, just in reply to that, is since we have usually an over stimulated and overnourished intellect and lack of often let's say intelligence in the spheres of sensation, intuition, and feeling, we have to be careful also not to overthink. What do you think? We need to, sometimes we think so much we just tie ourselves up. So nuance shouldn't mean thinking too much, because I think sometimes that just leads to inaction. It's just pure confusion. We start having all these conflicting thoughts, So that's where the ease comes in. We have to learn how to also relax and be able to let go sometimes and enjoy natural things like a breeze or cool water or warm water or the sight of a tree or leaf somewhere, simple things that can bring us back to a sense of ease and the present moment. Because most of us, I'm sure, think too much, think a lot of things that are just actually torturing us. That's my experience and experience of people I know. And it's what's said to be keeping us in samsara. So yeah, it is definitely connected with the thinking process. But yeah, to be intelligent, wise, yeah, it's all a razor's edge, isn't it? It's a tightrope act. Living in this world, let alone trying to be some kind of intelligent Dharma student, is a tightrope act. It's a razor's edge. So you have to be aware of what looks like honey on the razor's edge, lest our tongue turn into some image from a French New Wave movie, you know? Yeah.
Will you be coming back for chapter 9?
No way. I can't teach chapter 9. For chapter 9, and I'm not being falsely modest, I just can't. I would have to do a lot of revision and attend a lot of more teachings from people like Geshe-Dorje Damdollar. Yeah, I can't teach chapter 9. I've done the teachings, I've taken an exam on tenets, but that was 35 years ago. I passed, but it doesn't mean I can give any kind of valid teachings on the 9th chapter, I'm afraid. So for that, you have to go to a qualified person. And for that, first of all, you could read His Holiness has written on that 9th chapter. Can't remember the title of the book, but His Holiness has given a commentary on that 9th chapter in a book that is, you know, easily available, I believe. And okay. I remember the name, but you could look up. It's either a wisdom book. I think it's a wisdom book. Could be Snowline. Anyway, His Holiness has given quite a few teachings which are based on chapter 9. And Ajirji may know also some books connected, quite apart from the thick transcripts he must be having from Geshe-La's teachings. Ajirji, are you there? Suspicious. Ajirji may. Ajirji? I don't think it'll help if I shout. But there are books available. I'm trying to think. There's something with the word wisdom in its title, which His Holiness has written.
Yeah, I'm sure Google will turn something up,
yes,
especially matched with Shantideva. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But I can't, I'm sorry, I can't teach that. I can't teach any of this stuff, but I'm just, you know, attempting to do it in order to also benefit my own mind, try and, you know, get to grips with this amazing text. No, this is the wisdom of compassion. No, this is stories of remarkable encounters. This is not the one. Yeah, there is another book. Just had a list of books. Anyway, check it out on Google and you will find it very quickly.
Yeah.
Google is the great. Found it? Yeah, this is the one. Thank you, Ishaq. The book is practicing, practicing wisdom. Practicing wisdom.
Okay, thank you.
It's a wisdom publication, subtitled The Perfection of Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way. So he is basically looking at the 9th chapter, verse by verse. So that's what we need to read. And then, of course, if I read it properly and begin to understand it, then I could have a stab at it. But it's better to try and get that teaching. No, we could, I guess, begin to look at it together. It's possible. But problem is, it requires a lot of prior teachings on, on wisdom. Can't just go straight into the 9th chapter, really. But by doing that, one could, if one did a lot of work, it would take a lot of time. That's the other thing. And there are some people who would lose heart and wouldn't be so interested because it's tough stuff. It's not easy. But you've certainly given me the idea to work with it in some way. We might be able to invite occasional teachers to also teach parts of it, and then one could do also parts of it. Let's see. But if you read this book and you're interested, I'm sure you'll get a lot of. It looks like His Holiness is giving, verse by verse, and would also be introducing it. You could have a look at that, and then there are other books which you could look at to introduce that whole topic of emptiness. There's a very good book brought out by Geshe Tekchok called Investigating Reality, I think it's called. That is an excellent introduction. It's just so thorough, but that requires a lot of careful study. Investigating, what is it called? Geshe Tekchok. Geshe Tekchok is written on that.
What is the name of the book, Kabirji?
I think it could be, if you could look it up, I think it's called Investigating Reality, is it? Or Investigating? Jampa Tekchok. Is it there? It's co-authored with Thupten Chodron. Have you found it, anyone?
Check.
Insight into Emptiness. Thank you. It's called Insight into Emptiness. It's a wisdom book. Insight into Emptiness. Okay. Huh?
It's difficult to find because it's out of stock everywhere.
It's out of stock everywhere.
Yeah.
You've checked?
Yeah, I did check some time back.
Oh.
But a close, slightly simpler translation that I found that was recommended by Roma was Introduction to Emptiness
By?
Guy Newland.
Oh, okay. There's a book, apparently, Introduction to Emptiness by Guy Newland, Newland. I know he's one of the very good Western, teachers who's had very authentic, teachers himself.
What is the name of the author? What is the name of the author?
Guy Newland, Guy Newland. Naya Bhumi, new land. Nav Bhumi. Guy. Yeah, Guy Newland. He's one of the, there's quite a few really very talented, authoritative Western students teachers, professors, whatever, who can write on these matters because they had such authentic teachings, you see, from Tibetan teachers. They're not just writing off the top of their heads just because they know a little bit. They've received a lot of teachings and they're passing it on. So there's several books like that. I find myself Emptiness Yoga, parts of Emptiness Yoga very useful by Jeffrey Hopkins. Emptiness Yoga, especially the chapter on the chariot, investigation of the chariot, which is a classical example often given for deconstructing this sense of independently existing I or self or chariot or anything else. So that's in Emptiness Yoga by Jeffrey Hopkins. He's one of the authorities.
It's over 10,000 rupees.
Excuse me?
Insight into Emptiness by
Jampa Tekchok.
Yeah, Jampa Tekchok is really expensive. It's over 11,000 rupees.
That's much cheaper than a car or a scooty, and it leads to liberation, which a scooty or car doesn't. So therefore, it is a real bargain.
Yeah.
You have to get rid of a car in 10 years, or it can lead you down the garden path. You can kill people with your car. You can kill yourself. So with a book on emptiness, you can attain liberation. So which is more important? Use your logical mind. Of course, if you don't have 10,000 rupees, then of course it is a problem. Yes, I agree. Then you have to beg, steal, borrow, or just get a good job, or stop eating the evening meal, whatever it takes, Or if you come to me sincerely, I will loan you some money towards getting that book and not charge interest. Ye bhi ho sakta hai. But yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. I agree. 10,000 rupees is a lot for a book. Hell of a lot. Why is it that much? Maybe because it's out of print and there's very. That's on Amazon, is it?
Yes, Kabirji.
Because it's normally here it would be 1,000 or 2,000 max. Yeah.
When we were doing the emptiness course, all of us were searching for it, and we could literally see the price going up.
I was doing the emptiness course. When was I doing an
No,
emptiness?
when I was doing
When
the
you were
emptiness
doing, yeah.
course in
Tushita.
We were
Oh,
checking the prices before and after the course. And before the
oh.
course, it was about 6,000 or 7,000, and then it went up to 10,000 by the end of the course.
Who was
So
teaching that course?
Venerable Rolma.
Oh, okay, great,
Yeah, she's
great.
the resident teacher there.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, that was her last course.
Who is this Kabirji who's talking?
Who's talking?
Apurva.
Apurva.
I don't know.
Apurva. Yeah, she did that course. I didn't realize. Yeah, she's been here and very kind, giving me tea and things. And Isar is here. There was one other gentleman. He's departed. Namita is upstairs, I guess, watching there. If she is. Yeah. Okay, we can stop now because I'm going to go and check out the market and behave like Socrates, who said to have gone to the market and said, I love going to the market to look at all the things I have no need for. But I am also going to go and try and generate compassion because a lot of these shopkeepers are not going to sell 90% of their stuff, I reckon. And what do they do with the stuff that's left over, you know? Even the guy who sells newspapers, right? He's there with his stall with the Diwali stuff. It's like everyone is trying to sell Diwali items. Even the newspaper wala, who usually just sells newspapers and magazines. So kitna kamaega, kitna karega? Anyway, thoda sa exercise ho jayega baithne ke baad. So thank you all very much. Let's dedicate briefly with the words from the great Bodhisattva himself in the 10th chapter, which is kind of easier than the 9th chapter to understand a little bit. So just a few verses. So I'm going to, yeah, okay. So, yeah, good night to you, Ashwin. May I live and be sustained by simple common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude for practicing dharma. For as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain. Until then, may I too remain in order to dispel the misery of the world. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manju Ghosh, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. Please pray for the long lives of all the spiritual masters, long and healthy lives, and for them to be able to flourish the Dharma. So, for example, may His Holiness's 3 days of teachings in Bodh Gaya at the end of the year be very successful, and may many people benefit from that, from those teachings, and may His Holiness remain a long time to guide and inspire us, and all the other great teachers, our own Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the other great masters. And may all of us never feel dejected, never give up, and continue to practice. And in that way, may our lives be most beneficial for whoever comes in contact with us. Those who can, please attend the morning meditation with Namita. It's good to practice together. That's one way to gain consistency. And we will have a Sunday morning session, 11 o'clock, continuing with this text. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. So thank you very much. And